In this video, I will introduce the for each and the while loop in Rebol. Let's fire up our interpreter, and we're going to use the same Rebol block or series that we used in the last video when we introduced series. So we're just going to define a block with 3 words in it: red, green, and blue. And the variable or Rebol word colors is going to point to that. So what does a for each loop look like? Other languages have it, Rebol does as well. So let's just do that, see what that format looks like. So it's for each and then color. That's just a variable that I'm going to pick for each, that will get assigned to each element in the series. And this is the series that we're interested in looking at or looping through. And then we have to define an action block that for each color that in the loop. So we're just going to print the value that color was set to. So that's it. For each color and colors, we're going to print the color. And as expected, it walks through the loop or walks through the series and then prints each element of the series out. So let's look at the help for a for each loop. So the for each has, as we saw, the three elements to it. The first is the word. That's what's set to each time for each value of the series. And then you've got the data itself, which is the series to traverse. And finally, you have the body of the function or the block, which is going to be evaluated each time through the loop. And notice that we went through this loop once, and colors is still at the head. So if we do a head question mark colors, you'll see that the for each loop returned the color series back to the head. So that's just a convenience for the programmer. And I'm mentioning that because when you do the while loop, that's not the case. So let's see what that looks like. So first of all, let's look at the function or the help for the while looping construct. And it's a little bit simpler. So with the while loop, you have a condition block and then you have your body block. So let's build our while loop. First, we're going to have the condition block. And as we saw in the last one, we're going to say while, we're going to use the tail question mark to let us know when we reach the tail. And so while not tail colors, so that's our condition block. And then our body block, we're going to do the same thing. We just want to print out the word. So we're going to print, and this is a little bit more low level. We saw all this in the last video. We're going to extract the first value in the series. So we're just going to say print first colors. And remember that that first function is relative to where you are on the block. So it's always going to pick the first one relative to its current index position. And unlike the for each loop, which automatically will iterate through the series for you, this one you have to move that pointer forward in the series yourself. So in addition to printing the first colors, we're going to say colors colon next colors. And there we are. So it's going to check to see, are we at the tail, and then it's going to print and if we're not, then it's going to run the action block. We're going to print the first colors, and then we're going to index forward. And if I run that, we get red, green, blue, same thing. But notice that it returned the empty block there. So what it did was it it ran through it, and then it returned the series at the last position of the series that it was in, which was the tail. So if I say tail question mark colors now, you'll see, yes, we're at the tail. So the while loop left us at the tail, whereas the for each loop reset it back to the head automatically for us. So that's more of just a convenience feature. But doing it this way, a little more manually with the while loop, you have to remember, if you're in your script and you're using that series again later on in your code, just keep in mind it left it at the tail, so you need to probably move it back to the head or wherever else it needs to be for your code. So we're going to go ahead and set that back to the head. We're going to point back to the head. So now colors is pointing back to the head, and we're ready to do whatever's next. Okay, so that's that's pretty much it. That's the for each loop. That's the while loop. It's operating on the series that we learned in the last video. So it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing too unexpected here. I do want to close with something a little bit more advanced. Notice in the while loop it returned the series, which was pointed to the end of the series. So we can go ahead and automatically set that back to the head by modifying our code a little bit. So we can set, I had it on a separate line. It's pretty clear doing it that way. But you could also do something like this. So we know that it returns the color series of the tail. So why not do something like this? So we're saying colors colon head, and then we're going to execute that while loop. And the while loop's going to do its thing, and then when the while loop is done, the return value from the while loop is colors pointed to the tail of that block. So we're just going to prefix it with the head function, and there we go. It prints red, green, and blue. It does what it's supposed to do, and then it returns colors at the head. There we go. So this is an example of, most dynamic languages will do something like this. You can have the result of one function as a parameter or an argument in the next function. And also you can kind of see that this is where Rebol's left to right evaluation shines. You can just do these things left to right, and it's going to execute from the right and move back to the left. And you can come up with some more complex code like this. It's when you're first, if you're to the untrained eye, it looks a little odd and like, what in the world are they doing there? But after a while, you get used to it, and you get used to reading it from the left to the right, and then kind of seeing what's going on. But you'll see more advanced Rebol programmers doing stuff like this all the time. That's it for now. Thank you for watching.